You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening and welcome to the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show. My name is Kerry Greenaway and tonight I am joined in the studio by my lovely Tuesday host, Mr. Paul Rook. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm fine, but the rest of them are dropping like flies.
Talking
of flies.
I was going to say, don't mention too many flies, there might be a demon about.
Oh, no. Our lovely Carl Hutchinson is laid up with the sage lurgy again. He still hasn't quite recovered, so he's still in bed. He's all tucked up in his little bed. And Mr. Mark Manley has family commitments tonight, so won't be able to join us. So I've dragged my lovely co-host Paul into the studio to have a little look at the paranormal. This should be interesting. Paul can be quite outspoken at times. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening. You can uncuff me from the radiator now. No.
I might have to gag you if you get too outspoken.
Would I do a thing like that?
You might do.
It's interesting to see what you got for me tonight then.
Oh my goodness. Well, before we went live on air, you were talking about an episode of Help My House is Haunted that you'd watched, and you was getting a little bit incensed. Yep. Incensed is the word, about the fly thing.
Yeah, it was just the comments about there's a few blue bottle flies flying around this room, and the medium that they've got is like, oh, it's a demon. We've got to get out. And I'm like, really? Just open the window and let him out? It's gone.
It's very Amityville horror, isn't it? When you get the blue bottle thing.
I know, obviously, it's a TV programme and they've got to try and make it as entertaining as possible. But to dramatise it, I just think it just makes it look a bit, I don't know, silly.
Do you think that's the American factor? Because Chris Fleming, who you're talking about, is American. And over there, it is like hashtag it's a demon quite often, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it might just be the different terminology and, as you said, that they use. But, okay, I mean, yeah, you know, you could walk into a room and there'd be like billions of blue bottle flies, and that's attributed to like the Amityville horror particular demon. So I can see why they make that association, but to say that when there's only like 2 or 3 flying around and it's the beginning of a demon, no, it's not really. It's just a few flies got trapped in the room, let them out.
Well, I have come across this on a location, and it was a location that I had a very bad experience at. And we weren't talking like a live flies. We're talking about a lot of dead flies in this room. And to be fair, when we walked in the room, we were like, oh my God, we've got to clean that up. Not hashtag it's a demon. Do you know what I mean? It was like, we couldn't work out why these flies were in the room, why they were all dead. Couldn't work that out because there was that many. I mean, we're not talking, say, 1 or 2, which you would find generally on a windowsill in the summer. We're talking like the carpet was covered. We were expecting to find a corpse of a rat or a mouse or something where flies have laid, eggs and then they've not been able to get out the room type thing. But it was unusual at the time, yeah. But we didn't jump to the assumption that was paranormal related. We were more concerned that we were going to investigate in there and we didn't want to be doing that with dead flies in there. Do you know what I mean? There probably was a logic.
Isn't that a bit of a contradiction in terms? Because obviously a fly with no wings is called a walk. So if they're dead, they're not really flying.
Well, no, they weren't. So definitely weren't flying.
They'd be called because can't be flies then, can they? Raisins with wings, I don't know.
Big raisins with wings, because these were like massive blue bottle types.
Yeah, and I think this is why TV shows just annoy me sometimes, because they over dramatise everything, and yeah, it just sort of winds me up a little bit sometimes. But it is what it is at the end of the day, and it does pique interest in the paranormal for like other general members of the public. So you
It's
can't
true.
complain about that.
No, because we
Yeah,
have talked about this before, the pros and cons of paranormal television, haven't we? In general, we
yeah,
didn't focus on one particular show. And I've freely admitted many times that one of the reasons I got into the paranormal side of things rather than just sitting in the spiritual was because of Most Haunted. You know, I used to love watching that.
absolutely. And I mean, again, because I watched an episode of the Help My House is Haunted. Another thing that got me a little bit wound up was when they'd done the EVPs, because it would say something, and then the medium would say it sounded like something completely different. So even though he suggested what it sounded like to him, it didn't sound like that to me.
I
But
think
it didn't
that
even.
is the thing with EVP, though, sometimes.
Yeah, but if I said to you, I don't know, it sounds like he's saying "get out," and I don't know, the EVP is actually sounds like it's saying "hello and welcome" or something. It didn't even sound anything like the suggestion that they made. It was really odd. I mean, I don't know whether or not it just, because obviously if you're there, it sounds different. I don't know, but it just I don't think I'll be watching too many of them, because I might just need a new TV.
You might do. You might do
Yeah,
indeed. I don't know. But,
but
I mean,
it's the same for all shows, not just that particular one. As I
I
said, it
think
was only because I watched that one earlier.
I think with EVP, I think you get like various classifications of them, don't you? Because ages, years ago, when I first got introduced to EVP, I was shown a piece. I can't hear, you know me, me and my ears. It has to be like quite like you speaking. You know what I mean? For
Yeah,
me to get it. Because if it's anything more or anything different from that, or you have to manipulate the audio to hear it,
yeah.
I don't understand why that then is classed as an EVP. If you've got to manipulate something to the extent, I don't get that bit. Whereas,
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
I've heard
well,
EVPs before where it's like as clear as a bell, like you're speaking, not
yeah,
you specifically, but you know what I mean? Like, you can tell that it's not the people that were in the room, for example.
absolutely. And I mean, going back to the one I watched today, I think it was the latest episode when they're in the Smugglers Inn. Um, the medium Chris, he was standing in the coach, where they store the coaches, and he got an EVP, and to me and everyone that was in the room with me said that it sounded like "get out," but to him it sounded like "hello and welcome," and we're like, that's not what it said.
But I think, do you remember there
But
was a
that's
thing called Yanni and
quite a bit.
Laurie? It was a Lanny and Yorrell piece of footage
Yes,
that was put
yeah,
out. And people were hearing different things, weren't they? Does it sound like Yanni or does it sound like Laurel or something like
yeah,
that, wasn't it, at the time? And I remember discussing this with Jay and David Erickson from Paramania. And we
yeah,
were looking at age, sex makes a difference as to what you can hear. There were loads of different factors as to what
yeah.
people hear.
I get that, and maybe just the fact that I wasn't in the room with him is whether or not I would have heard the same thing. I don't know, because obviously there's a lot more atmospherical conditions that we could incorporate into that EVP that I'm not getting sitting in the living room where he is actually there and then. If what I mean, it's I don't know, it just doesn't make too much sense, and I'm like, really, I don't know. But it is what it is at the end of the day, as I said to you earlier.
It is one of those, isn't it? I mean, I haven't actually caught any of the episodes as yet, in all honesty. So I hold my hands up to that. Can't say I've seen any of it, so I can't.
They're watching. I do give them that. They are quite well put together. And as I said, Jane Harris and Barry Guy, absolutely fantastic. I just don't vibe with the medium that they've got.
Yeah, I love Chris. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's differences of what people... I mean, having said that, I've spoken to Chris at length before now. So, I like him as a person. I like Barry Guy as a person. I like Jane Harris as a person. So I can't see that there's anything in the presenter factor that I don't like, because I like them all and I know them all. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those, isn't it, I suppose? But in regards to paranormal TV, I love the fact they bring new things to the field. Sometimes they show you locations. It's interesting to see how people work and what they pick up.
I do like the way they work, though. I mean, because they'll go to a location and Jane will go off and research the building and some of the historical stories. Again, like in the latest episode, they were talking about a legend where there was this woman that was killed or hung in the building. So Jane went off and looked into that more. Mm-hmm. And then you had like Barry Guy, doing his experiments and stuff. Absolutely fantastic. And then Chris would do a walk around, I really don't. I like that way. It's a really good show. So
it's like coming at it from three angles. You've got the researcher, the medium, the spiritualist side of things, and then you've got the ghost investigator.
Yeah.
So that's quite a good mix, isn't it?
It is. It's really good. And I mean, I was quite shocked when in the credits it said created by Zach Baggins.
Yeah.
And I was like, really?
Yeah.
Come up. That was really good.
Zach has many amazing qualities. You just have yet to realise them.
I'm sure, absolutely. I'm sure he has. But no, he's come up with a good one there, definitely.
Well, this actually brings us on to a trending topic at the moment. Hellier 2 got released today. I know it's going wild across the old socials of people saying, I can't wait to watch it, or I'm binge watching it, and stuff like this. It's on Amazon Prime at the moment. I thoroughly enjoyed the first season of Hellier. I literally couldn't wait for the second one. So, yeah, I'm very, very excited about this one myself. Did you catch the first season? I want to call it, like, episodes, but it's not. It's a season.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I have yet to see it. I know you've told me about it lots, and you've said how really good it is, but I will binge watch it and watch season 2.
The thing I like about it is it shows raw investigations. It shows, like, the starting point, the research they've done. It shows the dead ends. It shows the the areas of research that they can't close down, that they can't get a resolution to, that it shows how they work, in regards to some of the experimentation. Yeah. I mean, on the first season, obviously, the Estes experiment the Estes method, was very much pronounced. In the second, they're saying there's 2 experiments going forward that has never been seen on TV. And this actually leads me to something. Now, Dana works in a very ritualistic, spiritualist way when she works. And some of the images I've seen looks like a little bit like, if you remember, we talked about the Persinger's helmet.
Yeah.
I think they've crossed over ritual with the Persinger helmet.
I think they read my blog. I thought, that's a good idea.
I think we're an inspiration to the field, Paul.
I think we are, absolutely. I'd like to send them an invoice for that now. That'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see, definitely, what they get on that.
Do you think, then, that we should introduce more spiritual, ritualistic ways of working into the field. It seems to be a trend that's starting to pick up in the field now, of people doing more ritual work rather than just a medium walking around. So do you think that's a good thing in the field?
I think it can be, but again, it does cross lines. Because, a role of a paranormal investigator is to investigate what's claimed to be going on and, gather evidence. But now you seem to get these run of paranormal investigators who would do all that in one night and then do a clearing or cleansing, so, encroaching on the whole spiritual side of things and pushing the spirits back to where they belong, basically. So sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's not. There are... It's just a grey area, I think.
I think if a spirit wants to move on, then it's the responsibility to do that as a spiritual person. But if not, then you shouldn't be pushing them over if they don't want to.
No, but if you're a paranormal investigator, do the paranormal investigator's job. If you go in there as a spiritualist and the owner wants the spirits moved on, then yeah, that's fair enough. Do you know what I mean? So you're acting as a spiritualist, not an investigator. Mm. That's I don't know. I just like defined roles, I think.
Yeah.
I
can understand that, actually. It depends on what job you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, we went to Ruffin Towers the other day. If there was a spirit there that wanted to be passed over, then it's a public location that thrives on part of them intake of money comes from paranormal investigators. So, again, it's that grey area of, do you have the right to pass over the spirit there and then? Do you know what I mean? It's one of those grey areas where, okay, if the spirit wanted to be passed over, but the owner of the location would rather you not, what do you do?
Well, you listen to the spirit. That's as a spiritual person, that's where your responsibility is, not a money-making scheme. I don't agree with people going in and doing clearances on locations that don't want that, and the spirit's not wanting that. I mean, there was a case a little while ago, it caused a bit of a stir in the old paranormal community, where a person went into East Drive and said, I've cleansed the place, there's nothing in there and everything else. I mean, my thoughts on East Drive anyway, but the owner, Bill, had not said, we want that to happen. And the spirit...
Exactly.
He'd just gone in and done it off of his own bat. It was almost as if, say, like, I don't care what anybody says or what anybody wants, I'm going to just do it.
And that's the problem it causes. And that's why lines should be defined, I think. If you're a paranormal investigator, investigate. If you're just after, like, the cheap thrill of ghost hunting, then that's fine too. But be a ghost hunter. Don't be an investigator. If it's a hobby for you and you just enjoy going out doing these investigations, be a ghost hunter. But as an investigator, it's that little bit extra more, if that makes sense.
Mm. But we come down to terminology again, though, there, don't we? Because a lot of people get quite annoyed these days with the term ghost hunter. I've actually changed my terminology. That's why I call it ghost investigation, because I upset a few people by saying ghost hunter.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the term ghost hunter. It just means that I think you're just part of a team. You enjoy going out, doing the whole ghost hunting, doing what you see on a TV. Again, there's nothing wrong with any of that, providing obviously you know what you're doing and you're not opening portals to hell and things like that. But as an investigator, you want to then learn and grow your knowledge base, so that you're doing the investigations, you're gathering evidence, you're learning, you're researching and you're growing in that way. But yeah, and then obviously you've got the spiritual side of it that can do the cleansing and stuff, because that's sort of what you do.
So do you think that people are being offended by things that are really not worth being offended over, like a terminology or the way somebody works? You know, they don't necessarily agree with the way someone works, so they then get all offended and upset with them.
Absolutely, I do think there's a lot of it, and it's not just in the paranormal world. People get offended by such small, stupid little things every day, and is it worth it? It's okay to be offended. What's going to happen? Nothing. So just roll with it. Just, if you're offended, move on. Nothing's going to happen either way. So it's fine to be offended. You can just we're all adults. You can agree to disagree if that's if needs be, but just there's no need to go on and cause a load of grief for anybody. Because it is what it is.
Because there does seem to be you seem to get pockets, don't you, of people that seem to take out almost like a personal vendetta against other people in the field. I mean, I'm going to bring up Ghosts of Britain at the moment. I think what's going on with those guys at the moment is awful. Just because somebody doesn't like the way they work or the way they put stuff forward, it's almost like a hate campaign seems to be going on with those guys.
It is, and that is exactly what it is. It is a hate campaign, and I do know Lee Steer, and I've spoken to him on many occasions. Not all the time have I agreed with him, but he knows that, and I've spoken to him about that. And at the end of the day, we're adults. We can say what we want to each other. No disrespect either way. We respect each other's opinions. We've all got them. I mean, we might not always agree, but that's part of being an adult. Life's like that. There's no need to get offended. Just move on, and there's no issues whatsoever.
No, I haven't got any issues with Lee or Lindsay or the Ghosts of Britain team either, and I have been critical in the past about certain aspects. Having said that, when I watch them work, I don't see that being any different to the majority of other teams that are out there doing the same thing. Is it because they've reached a degree of success, or is it because of certain, or because they are actually gaining a monetary gain out of it?
I think some people have got an issue with the monetary gain, but if they're doing it as a business, then I don't see any problem with that whatsoever. But they have really hard to get where they are. I'll give Lee Steer that. I know he's worked really, really hard, because I knew him when he just had his Project Reveals magazine, I think it was, when that first came out. So I've worked with him. I've had him out on investigations with myself. And me and Richard went up to the Poltergeist house a few weeks ago. Lee, I think Lee's absolutely, fantastic guy. But there are people out there that I think are a bit jealous of what he's got, and but
I mean, I was watching a live feed the other night. I put this out there. I was watching a live feed with the guys the other night, and they were talking about a booklet that had been released on Amazon that is, who knows who it's written by. It's written under a pseudonym, which is it's like a takeoff of Lee's name. And whilst they're on their live feed talking about this, they get a knock at the door. Lindsay answers it, and apparently it was somebody asking to borrow their Wi-Fi. And obviously Lindsay said, well, no. And the man went, okay, thanks, and then drove off. I found that a little disturbing.
That is really weird.
It was strange, it was weird, it was highly unlikely that someone's going to do that, just normally. I found that quite disturbing, and I thought, Lindsay said, she's scared to leave her house. She's scared to talk to people now because of this. Now, bless her, they're carrying on doing what they do. And, the way I see the monetary side of it is, firstly, they put out a product in regards to the Poltergeist house. Yeah. All right. The name I have a little bit of a problem with, but, each to their own. The Haunted Objects Museum, I much prefer. And but that's personal opinion, everybody. That's just my opinion. And so they're putting out a product. So if they rent that out, which that's no different from any other location.
No.
If they do a GoFundMe, it's a person's choice whether or not they wish to put into that GoFundMe. If I decide to put into that, that's got nothing to do with anybody else.
No, as long as they're honest and upfront about what they're selling and what they're, with the GoFundMe, as long as they're honest and upfront with what they're going to use the money for, if people choose to give them their money, that's down to them.
Exactly. You pay your money, you take your choice. It's personal choice.
Yeah.
They're being called out for doing it in the first place. What do you think on that? The fact that they've done that. Or somebody's done that in their, not in their stead, on behalf of them. They've gone, this would be a really nice thing if we can help raise some money for these guys to get new equipment, because they had all their equipment stolen at one point. And it's almost like anything they do is not believed, not trusted.
Absolutely. No, and I think it's just down to jealousy. It really is. As I said, if people want to donate money to them for new equipment, as long as it's spent on new equipment, what's the problem? It's no different than buying something from the shop. If it's broken, faulty, or not what you paid for, then you've got the right to get your money back. But as long as they're honest and up front, what's the problem? But, and I'm not saying that, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no. I say we're discussing this concept. And also some of the sensationalism things that they've done in the past. I've seen other people do things just as bad as that, but not get that level of criticism from the field. There was I'll mention it on air, which is the Myra Hindley scenario. I wasn't comfortable, would have kept that private personally if that had been me. Personal opinion, everybody. But I saw another team doing it with Fred West's shoes. 2 or 3 weeks later, or not even weeks, I think it was a week later, they didn't get the level of criticism that Lee and Lindsay seemed to get.
No, absolutely. But then they probably didn't have the public image that Lee and Lindsay had got. Because they do have a huge following.
Massive.
And they're still a huge following. So whatever this person wants to achieve, he's not doing it, or she's not doing it. And, but I think with this book thing, I think all references of it should be taken down. Because if it is down to the police now, then it's a legal case ongoing, so it shouldn't be discussed on social media. I know Lee and Lindsay put out a live feed about it, but I don't like live feeds, to be fair, so I don't try and, as you know, I'm not very comfortable with them, so I tend not to. I scroll past them all. So I don't know what was said, but if it was just a case of, right, it's down to the law now, leave it, then that's what everyone should be doing. And I know a couple of days later it popped up again on one of the Facebook social groups.
Yeah.
And everyone's discussing it again. And to be fair, I think that should be taken down.
I think...
Case.
Yeah, looking at the chat room, involving recent cases is not a good idea, says Andy M. I agree with that. I don't think anything in recent history should be, all right, maybe look into it privately, but don't put it out there. And the field is huge. And like he says, there's plenty of other things to look into, plenty of older cases to look into, plenty of other things where you're not going to offend somebody. Do you know what I mean? In the modern time, I do think there is a level of responsibility in that respect. But that's my, again, personal opinion.
Absolutely. No, I do agree with you. But then saying that, there is a market for it, whether you agree with it or not. I mean, look at the True Crimes Museum and look how recent some of that stuff is. It's even younger stuff than Myra Hindley stuff.
Yeah.
You got the Essex Boys, one of the Essex Boys cars in the museum. That was like in the 90s. You know, how far back have you got to go to make it all right? And people are quite happy to go to the True Crime Museum and investigate.
Yeah, that's true. I've been there myself.
Yeah, well, so have I. But you know, I'm sort of into that for various reasons. But you still get that, and true crimes don't get any bad press, like Lee.
No, they do seem to be. There does definitely seem to be, and I'm going to use the term witch hunt. It seems to be the more modern day witch hunt, doesn't it?
It does, and yeah, I mean, I've been a victim of it loads of times, and yeah, Lee's definitely a victim of it. It's just, I just think it's the same set of people.
Yeah, I mean, I saw their faces when they were talking about it on the live, and they looked absolutely devastated and exhausted from it all. And I think that social media is a fantastic tool. It is a fantastic tool. It allows you to reach out and connect with people that you wouldn't normally be able to connect with. It does broaden your horizons a hell of a lot. You know, we've met some people from America through social media that have become friends, and even though we haven't met them, which would never have happened like 15, 20 years ago, you know. So I do think it's a fantastic tool, but it can also be an incredibly... people hide behind their social media a lot, or they hide behind their keyboard. And I think people underestimate how devastating and if that effect can be on people, and people need to be a lot more aware of that. And it might seem all like fun and jokes, but it does mentally affect people who are doing what they want to do out of social media. My advice is, if you don't like what somebody's doing, don't follow them. Don't look at what they're putting out there. Just move on. Do you know what I mean? Unfriend them, unfollow them. You won't see what they're getting up to. That's my opinion. I've done it myself. If I've not liked what somebody's doing or putting it out there, I just don't follow them. I turn off my notifications.
See, I'm not a very big fan of the whole live feeding your investigations. I don't like that, and I don't like sitting there watching people doing investigations. So I will literally just scroll past them. I don't need to say anything to them. You know, if they want to do that, that's up to them. That's fine. You know, as I said, we're all adults. We should just, if you don't like something, you roll on. You know, scroll on.
Or don't have them on your feed. You have that discernment of choice, don't you? You know, you don't have to follow these people. You can switch off, unfriend them, unfollow their groups. You know, there's plenty of people that if something's happening, you can just get rid of them on the social medias. You don't have to look at it. And I think that's my problem with this. It's that people still follow them to see what they're getting up to so they can criticise and do whatever it is that they're doing. I just don't like that side of people.
Yeah. No, I don't. And it's just pathetic. And I think this latest one with the book, it's just a whole new level.
I just couldn't believe it when I was reading about that, to be fair. And the fact that, and I think the more worrying side of it is it's published through Amazon. I'm assuming it's a self-published piece of work. I would assume. There's going to be a paper trail. There's going to be ways of tracing the origins of that, I'm sure. So if there is, then I think those people need to be very careful about what you put out there, because it will come and bite you.
hopefully it does bite them. Because if they're going to do it to one person, they're going to do it to others. And they shouldn't be in the paranormal field at all. They need to be gone. Because that's what's wrong with it.
Yeah, very much so. Anyway, let's move on to a more positive subject. Okay. Tomorrow, the Higgy Pop Awards closes, doesn't it?
Yeah, Sunday, isn't it, I think?
I thought it was 30th.
Oh, it could be. Could be tomorrow then.
So, fingers crossed, Paul, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Fingers crossed that we win.
Now, again, this was a hugely criticised thing. Back in D, when Paraforce was running and rolling its paranormal conventions, they used to do something called the Scary Mary Awards. It was all very jovial. It was all a laugh. It wasn't serious at all. And the Scary Mary, I always said I wanted a Scary Mary. So, just putting it out there because I loved it. I thought they were brilliant. Now, they got really heavily criticised for doing that little award ceremony. And I say it was all just a bit of fun. It wasn't supposed to be anything serious. And now we've got Higgy Pop Awards and everyone's taking that very, a brilliant winner Higgy Pop Award, and they've not had any criticism that I've seen about the award ceremony. So again, what is the difference between the Scary Marys and the Higgy Pop Awards? I just don't understand.
No, I don't think there's any difference, to be fair. I know, obviously, with the Higgy Pop ones, it is the Paranormal Entertainment Awards. So they're going for the entertainment side of things, not particularly any paranormal teams, small paranormal teams and that, like the Scary Mary ones. Maybe that's the difference.
Maybe.
Because I know that someone would get an award and it'd go right to their head and they'll think they're better than everybody else. And that's not the case. It's just a bit of recognition, bit of laugh, having a laugh, and that's about as far as it goes.
The way I do what I do on the radio, because I love to do it. I love to talk about the paranormal. I like the subject. I like to research it. I enjoy investigate. I enjoy the whole field, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And doing the radio for me is a huge passion. I'm hugely committed to it, as you know. And it would be lovely. I'm not going to be devastated if we don't win it, but I would get a thrill to win it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend any other way. It would be that's brilliant. We won it.
It's a bit of recognition. It's almost like a thank you from all the people that have listened in and they enjoy our shows. I think that's the nice thing about it, and that's what I would take from it. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't make us any better than anyone else. It is what it is at the end of the day, and it's just a bit of recognition, not we're better than you, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. That's how I see it too. But again, there was that. It never ceases to surprise me. No, it doesn't surprise me at all. How it gets received in one way by one person, and how somebody else does it, and it's received in a completely different way. It's almost like, hang on a minute. Hey, talk about hypocritical.
Absolutely.
The same people that were criticising the Scary Marys are like all up for the Higgy Pops. It's just like I just think, what, really?
I know, and I think some of the people that picked up on the Scary Marys are some of these witch hunter type people, and they started the ball rolling, and people just jump on the bandwagon, and off it goes.
I think sometimes
again, it's form of bullying.
Well, and we've talked about paranormal bullying before, haven't we?
Yeah, lots of times. I've even written a blog about it.
Mm-hmm. And it is something that we have to become very aware of it. I mean, going back in the day, we look horrified now at the old witch trials and the inquisitions that happened and stuff like that. But I do think in some shape or form, it's just evolved its way of happening, and it happens now on a social media or computer front. Where people can hide behind that. They're not doing it face to face, whereas in the old days it was a face to face scenario most of the time. But I think, whatever way you walk it, we're all investigating something that hasn't been proved. We talk theories and concepts till we're blue in the face, but we can't actually prove things. And we read, maybe some scientific theses, or we read a book, and, how much actually do we truly know in depth about something? I mean, when I was at the Nameless Art Conference the other week, I was talking to John Kaneko James, and he was talking about the Rye Witch trials. And I hadn't heard of the Rye Witch trials, but I was looking into it a little bit afterwards. And afterwards, I was talking to John, and he was saying he's right at the beginning of this research. It's going to take him another 5 years, possibly more, to completely research this and get to the bottom of it, and translate a lot of the documentations and stuff like that. And I was sitting there thinking, oh my word, that is some staying power, isn't it, for research? And I hold my hands up. I'm in awe of people that can hold the concentration level on one topic for that amount of time. Anybody Andy M's in the chat room. I know how long it took him to research and write some of the work he's done. And I'm in awe of people like that because of the work that goes into that. I know how much work I do just for a show, but that is nothing compared to what some people do. Some projects I've had that have been ongoing for a long time, I kind of dip in and out of the project. You know what I mean? I say it's an ongoing project. Sounds like I'm working on it constantly, but I'm not. I'm in and out. So I'm actually in awe of people that can hold that level of research and concentration for that amount of time on one area, and I just find that phenomenal.
I think, we are literally at the beginning of, pyramid of information. And we're at the bottom levels at the moment. We're just building the bricks and coming up with theories, and it's just up to us to research the theories that we come up with and learn and progress, and eventually we'll get to the answer, but probably not in this lifetime.
I think the majority of us aren't academically minded in regards to having that level of concentration on a specific topic. We'll read an article and then that'll be it. We won't really research it anymore. We'll just read an article and take it as read, or we'll read a book and go, oh, that was interesting, and leave it sort of there. And so the people that are doing that work, the research, and then putting it into the books or the blogs or whatever it be, are, phenomenal, really. Because how many people in the paranormal field are actually doing that level of work? Very few.
Yeah, and it only takes one person to come up with one idea. It doesn't matter whether they're academic or not. If someone reads a blog and thinks, well, actually, that's quite a good idea. Let's test that.
Or but we haven't got the capacity. But we haven't got the capacity to test it. We haven't got the equipment. There's some ideas I've had.
Oh, that's right. We can still come up with the ideas, and the theories.
My argument there is, I might have had the idea, but that's all it's ever going to be, is an idea.
At the moment, someone could take one of your ideas and think, yeah, okay, that's a really good concept. Let's investigate that. And then they will build and investigate. So it just takes one person to come up with one idea, thinking outside the box, to spark off a whole, investigation case. So we're just at the bottom of the rung. That's it. Bottom of the ladder.
Well, this is very true. And, I just really take a lot from people that do the work. Do you know what I mean? I really do take a lot from, reading other people's work, which sparks my brain, gets my brain going. Do you know what I mean? It makes me think. And that, for me, is what makes a really good book. I'm still ploughing through the Skull Experiment at the moment. And time is just running away from me again. But some of the ideas that have come on, and things that they the spirit team that the Skull group worked with, you think, gosh, if we could, imagine if there's a spirit team for every group and we all got it working and, looking at it in that way, how amazing would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you.
So what's the most interesting concept you've come across recently?
I think when, again, going back to thinking outside the box and ideas, I think the one that's pretty much blown me away at the moment is the mobile phone experiment.
Mm.
And I'm taking that to the next level, and I'm going to be investigating that when we go back to Codner in January. Both me and Richard have come up with some really good ideas to try and find out what exactly that music was that came through.
Funnily enough,
try and experiment with that.
We were talking with Andy Mercer the other night, weren't we? We was all on Skype and we was having a little chin chat. And Andy was like, well, what is this experiment? We was talking about that. And he actually said, he goes, that's interesting because you never, when you're making a phone call to, like, when I'm phoning you, we never get a bleed in from another phone line, or we never get, like, anything come through on the line that's, we don't get any interference on the line, do we? Have you gone? But what Andy M was saying was that he recognised the film that was there. I've lost Paul. Oh my God, I've lost Paul. That's scary. But he recognised the film because what was coming through on the feed, if you haven't seen it, go back and check it out because it's absolutely astonishing because it's so clear. It's like a TV is on in the room. It's really, really weird. And it was Andy recognised it as, thank you, Andy, for putting it in there because I had forgotten what film you said. He said the film was music from The Night of the Demon. And it was so clear that Andy and Paul were saying they recognised the film. Paul couldn't recognise which film it was. Andy could recognise it. It was the film was The Night of the Demon. Astonishing. Now, we can't understand how it was that clear coming through on the phone line. Yet we've done the experiment in other places and we've heard strange things coming through on the phone. At Rotham Tower, there was a strange sort of echo. We're still reviewing that footage because some of the echo sounded like me when I was asking questions or Paul when he was asking questions. But other times, it didn't sound like what we had said at all. So it was like an echo that wasn't our voice at times, but sometimes it was. You could tell when it was us and you could sort of like go, that didn't sound like our echo. And then there was another occasion where we used iPhone to iPhone. Then all of a sudden, we've been running the experiment for about 6 minutes and the phone turned itself off. Now, that's not such a big thing. You think, oh, signal's gone, phone line's just cut. No problem. When we went back to retrieve the phone, the camera itself had actually taken a photo or a screenshot before it turned off. And yet nobody was in that room. And so we looked at whether or not it was the way it was held. But if it had been the way it was held, the timing of the photograph would have been more immediate. And so, yeah, it was very bizarre.
It was really good, though. Really interesting.
And you're back in the room.
And we're back in the room.
But again, we're having trouble to explain that.
We are, and I don't understand what it could be. We've come up with different ideas. We tested Samsung to Samsung phone, Samsung to iPhone, and then iPhone to iPhone to see whether we get the same experiences, which we did. We still got the echo on all the types of phones.
Yeah.
Whether or not it could be the particular rooms and the echoes in the rooms, I don't know. But it is quite interesting where, we got echoes that came back that wasn't our echoes, if that makes sense.
That was interesting. So we're still looking into that at the moment. We are still reviewing it to see if we can clean it up and stuff like that. I will say there was no static on the line when we were doing it.
No.
And when we was actually in the room, just as people talking, there wasn't an echo. It wasn't an echoey room that you go, oh, that's an echoey room. You are on loudspeaker, though. That's the only thing I will say. But it was unusual.
It was. And, yeah, I mean, we didn't get anything like we did at Codner when we first went.
No.
When we first went there, the music that came through was literally crystal clear. And as you said, like it was Night of the Dead, wasn't it? I think from the movie
Night of the Demon.
Night of the Demon. That's it. Yeah. So that's how crystal clear it was to be able to identify it. It was really strange,
And it was loud.
to say the least. Very loud. But me and Richard are going to go back. We're going to be testing analog signals and digital signals and all sorts of various ways to see whether or not it could be something external.
Which is what it is about, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
I was wondering, because
Yeah,
I know this experiment has been done not just by you yourself, but other teams have gone off and tried this experiment.
Yeah.
Has anything, or have you known of anything like that come through on that experiment yet?
Nothing like what we caught the first time. There was an experiment run, I believe, Saturday, where they don't use the phone with the little girl that's supposed to be there and sings, and they got the same responses we did when they sang nursery rhymes. They got the little girl to sing the last word.
Again.
So this spirit has been known to like singing. So, and has been heard singing, obviously without the phone. And it was just that particular night we decided to test the phones. And, we got the responses we did. It was absolutely amazing. So with that experiment, we want to just run with it and look into it as much as we can. Not only just at the location, but other locations, and to see whether or not we can recreate it. And so far, the responses we've been getting have been consistent. That we do get responses. Okay, it's not always the same sort of thing, but
I think if it was
still
the same,
happens.
but I think if it was the same thing all the time, then I think that would cause more cause for a logical explanation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, when we first did the one at Rotham, there was sound. It sounded like somebody was in the room moving, didn't it?
Yeah, because we didn't say anything right at the beginning, did we? We just let it go.
Well, 'cause we wanted to get time. We wanted to allow time for the people that had put the phone in the room to get out of the building and get back to us. So we were just sort of like listening for a bit until they got back to the hub room, and everybody was in the hub room. Everybody.
Yeah.
There was nobody in there at all, and there was nobody around the location. There was nothing. It was purely an empty. The control tower was completely empty when we was running the experiment. So we weren't saying anything to start with because we wanted to allow the people who were putting it in the room to get back to the hub room. So, but while we were sitting there waiting for that, you could obviously hear them when they were in the room put it into the stands that there was, and then you could hear them leave and shut the door, and then gradually leave. But it was sort of like it sounded like there was some movement in the room, not talking or anything like that, but it did sound like there was somebody in the room. To the point I was like, "Hello, is anybody there?" Do you know what I mean? Not meaning the spirit, but thinking it was still the guys in the room, and it wasn't.
No, and it is just amazing that you got to experience that as well, because we got what we did at Codner, and it blew our minds, and it done exactly the same to you somewhere else.
It certainly did. It's a very interesting experiment, I will say that. But like Paula said, it's worth a lot more investigation and looking at the tech and looking at things like that, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, but as I said, we initially done it with an iPhone to a Samsung. So we needed to experiment with that and then try different phones to see whether we get the same results, which we did. So it doesn't matter what phones we used, we're still getting the same responses. So it's happening, whatever it is. We just need to find out what it is that's happening.
Because it could still be a logical explanation.
Oh, absolutely. There could be a complete logical explanation for it, outside influences. But I mean, as when it first happened, I actually contacted Samsung and asked whether or not a signal could be interfered with, and that they said it's very highly improbable that anyone could interfere with an open line. You'd have to have really extensive equipment, and there's nothing at Codner. We don't obviously carry any extensive equipment with us to interfere with phone signals, so we can rule that out at least.
And you certainly didn't have a television in there?
No televisions, no radios, nothing like that at all. No, the only TV I think there was probably a computer monitor downstairs in the hub room. Mm. But that was fixed up as an obvious, I believe.
Right. Well, fascinating one, and one we're going to continue to try with. But going back to Helia on this, various experiments that they tried, like the Estes method, is now being used more and more in the field, isn't it? Because people have seen that work on Helia and are actually, utilising that experiment themselves to see if they get any results with it. And I think that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about sharing knowledge, isn't it, at the end of the day? And they come up with these experiments, and I opened it up to the rest of the field to have a go at, which is really what we should all be doing.
Exactly.
Sharing it.
Well, isn't that what an author does when he writes his book and researches? He's done the work, he puts it out there, and off we go. We read it and learn from what they've learned, and that increases our knowledge base.
Exactly. That's what it's all about, I think, at the end of the day. And, it's definitely a good one.
And just bear in mind, it's sometimes down to interpretation.
Yeah, definitely. And, if someone does come out with an opinion about it, just roll with it. Respect the opinion, good or bad, it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
I don't mind opinion when it's I don't criticise anybody for having an opinion if it's put out there in the right way. I do think some people in the field, you get the extremes, you get the ones that know better and put it across very patronisingly and arrogant, and then you get the other ones that just go, it's a piece of crap. Do you know what I mean? It's like you seem to get like the two extremes in the field. With this one, I feel sometimes I've been very offended by the way somebody's put something against something, and I don't like either. I don't like the extreme of arrogance, and I don't like the non-researched, well, I just don't think that's right, it's awful kind of approach either, without anything to back it up on. Middle of the road, respect everybody, put it out there in a way that shows you've done some work. And even if you have a difference of opinion, you can still be respectful to each other. Anyway, we've pretty much come to the end of the show there, Paul.
Oh, wow. Okay, that went quick.
It felt like another paranormal concept show.
It sounded like an after-show party, to be fair.
It certainly did, because that is kind of what we do when we're in our after shows. We sit and we talk about, concepts and ideas, and, carry on sometimes some of the topics that we've been talking about on air, or thoughts we've had about certain things when we've been on air, or talking about ideas of how we could improve an experiment, or how we would have done it, or what we could look at to see if we could debunk it. All sorts of things come up in the after show party on Parasearch Radio. It's not just having a jolly afterwards, which has been accused, not doing any work and just sitting there having a jolly. That is one thing that is certainly not going on. A lot of good concepts and ideas come out from our after show parties, and will continue to do so. Anyway, on that note, thank you for joining me.
No problem. If I didn't join you, you wouldn't have a show.
Well, this is true, at least. Yes, I won't carry on with that thought pattern. Anyway, join me. No, actually, Penny on Monday for the live roundup of shows going on, because I am working till late on Monday, so I won't be able to do the live. So our lovely Penny, she doesn't know it yet, we'll be doing the roundup of shows on Monday for you. And on that note, we will see you all next week. Have a great weekend. On that note, we say good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web. to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.